Hello again, welcome back. Here we are to continue talking about React and working on our product list, okay? In the last video, we made an array of we made an array of categories, and now we want to make the array unique where we don't have any duplicate names in the list, okay? So let's do that. I'm going to go to my data.js, and we're going to do all this manipulation of the data in here and then just export the things that the rest of the program will want to use. This will keep our application organized, right? Our code will be more organized this way. So I have all the category names here, but I want to turn this into a unique array. So let's do that. There's a couple ways to do this. We could do it with reduce, and we could do it with a set, okay? So for fun, let's do it with we'll do both maybe, right? So I'm going to start with the set. So if you're not familiar with a set looks like this. You can say new set, okay? And a set is very similar to an array. So I could say const, my set equals new set, right? So a set is very similar to an array. It's a list, and you can access elements out of the list. But the unique thing about a set is that every value is unique, right? So everything in the set, you can't have any duplicates, okay? So the set doesn't allow for duplicates. In an array, you can have multiples of the same thing, right? You can also make a set from an array. So if I was to do this, I could say all categories and initialize my set with all these items from this array, and it would filter out all the new ones, or I mean all the duplicates, right? But what would happen here is we'd have a set here, and what I want is I want an array. So I'm going to change this to unique, unique categories. There we go, right? Spelling fumble there, right? Okay, unique. Wait, my spelling is really bad here. Let's unique. There we go. Okay. So I've got the unique categories here, but this would be a set at this point, right? And I want an array because it'll be easier to work with the array elsewhere in my program. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the set here and turn that set into an array, right? So what I'll do is I'll say array.from, and this from command allows you to take something that's iterable, right? Something that is similar to an array but not exactly an array, and turn it into an array. So you can say array from something, right? So if I put a set in here, array from is able to convert that set into an array. So this should now be the unique categories. So what we'll do is we'll export those unique categories here, and then we can import them into our app.js. So let's go to app.js over here, and I'll import unique categories. And why don't we console log those too? We'll actually use them to generate some buttons later, but for right now, let's just export them so we can see them in the console. So I'll go back to my browser here. I'll save. Make sure you save because that'll refresh the browser, and I'll clear the console and refresh it. And now you can see I've got the array of objects. That was data. I have the array of all categories here, and then beneath that I have the array of unique categories. So if I look here, you can see this one has 100 items in it, same as the data. But if I look at the second list, you can see it only has 22 items in it, right? Because this one doesn't have any duplicates, right? So it's got tools, automotive, baby, movies, grocery, health, right? Okay. There we go. So so there's our array, right? Our unique array. Let's try that again just for fun, and let's do it with reduce. Okay. So I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to say let's do const unique categories equals. And what I want to do is, in this case with reduce, is I want to reduce this array to unique values, right? And so that's a little weird. There's a couple ways to do this, right? But what I think I'm going to do here is this. If you have an object, right? So if you have an object like this that has a key of A and a key of B, right? If you say object.keys, right, then this is going to return an array of string A and B. Okay, so it'll take the keys here, convert them to a string, and give me an array of just the keys. Okay, so I have an object here like this. It's going to return, I don't know why it doesn't like that, but that's, oh, because I forgot the value there. There we go. Okay, so, but what's going to happen here is we're going to take this object and we're going to pull the keys out and make an array of them. Okay, so that means if I make an object and I set the key to each one of the category names here, then I'll have an array or an object with the keys that match all the categories. And then if I take those categories and turn them into an array, I'll have all the keys here, right? The thing here though is that if we have an object and you have duplicate keys, right, then you don't get, you can't have duplicate keys, right? You can't keep them both. So what will happen is when JavaScript makes this object, this second key with the same name as the first will overwrite that first one. So this one will go away and we'll just have this situation. So if I, create a key here and it happens to be a duplicate, it won't add a new key with the same name. We'll only get one name, right? So let's give that a try, right? So here's our second option, right? So how are we going to reduce? So I'll take my data and I'll do data.reduce. Okay, so there's data.reduce, and reduce takes a function as the first parameter. So I'm going to type that whole function here like this. And it actually takes a second parameter, and that is the accumulator. So I'm going to put an empty object there as the accumulator, okay? And then what's going to happen here is, so the accumulator, it's kind of like the running total. So imagine like you had a piece of paper and you were writing down, you were counting something, right? And you wrote down 3, and then someone said, hey, remember this number 5, and you want to add it to your 3, you'd cross out the 3 and you'd write down the 5 on the piece of paper, right? So the accumulator kind of acts in that way. So every time we run this function, it's going to return the accumulator and we'll receive the accumulator for the next item. So we're going to get an item from our data and the accumulator, and this will be the starting value for the accumulator. So I'm going to put ACC for the accumulator, and then I'll put object for our object. Actually, it's a category name. Let's just call it cat. How about that, right? And what I want to do is I want to add the category name as a key to this object and then return that object. So I'm going to say ACC bracket category name, right? And then you can just put any value on the object, right? So I'll just put a 0 there, okay? So imagine that the first category name was toys, then our object should look like this, okay? And then if the next category name was music, then our object would look like this. And if the third item was toys, our object would still look like this because we would create a new key of toys, but that key already exists, so we just set the value to 0, okay? So we're going to loop through all the objects and do this, and we're going to end up with we're going to loop through all of the names, I should say, and we're going to end up with an object that has one name for each of the names in each of the unique names in the list. And then as a last step, every time we update the accumulator, we have to return the accumulator. So I'm going to say return the accumulator, and then I'm going to get the new accumulator here, a new category. I'll add that category and then return the accumulator again, okay? And then our last step is to turn the value that's returned here, turn it into an array of strings with object.keys. So let's actually move this over here. I'm going to say const, let's call this, I'm going to just call it cats for some reason. And I'm going to do this step right here. So I'm going to, make the category object right there, And then over on the next line here, I'll say object.keys, and I'll make my keys from the cats. Cats is short for categories, okay? Right, so there's my unique items there. Oh wait, I think I have a problem. I made a mistake. I used data here, and you can see like all my object. I have one object called object, right? I forgot. I used the object here. I should be using the category names, right? Oh, there we go. So I was just looking down here and I saw there was a mistake, right? So let's do all category names. This is one category name, and this is the object that is getting the key for each category name, right? So now when we return our unique categories, object.keys can turn that object into an array of the key values, right? And when I look here, you can see again, I have 22 categories, and each one is one of the category names that's unique, okay? So there we go. So that's, that solves challenge number 3, I think. Yeah, so there's challenge number 3. So let's talk about challenge number 4. Okay, so challenge number 4 is to make an object where each of the keys is represented, but the value, instead of having a value of 0, what we want to do is we want to have the number of times that name appears. So for example, if movies appears 6 times in all categories, then in this object right here that we're creating, we want to have it have the value here be the number of times it appears, right? So it's going to be similar to what we did here, but what you're going to do is you're going to make a new variable. So let's do, let's call this categories and counts, right? This is called a histogram, okay? So we've got like the name of something and how many times that thing appears, right? And it's really useful for us. And, you know, we can use it up, well, actually I don't have, I guess I don't have that thing open again, but if you remember, I had all the buttons up here and they each said how many times or how many items, products were in that category, right? So we'll use it in our final product, right? Our final app. So I have some ideas for you here, and you can follow the same setup that we did here, but it's going to be a little bit different, right? So let's kind of set that up again, and then I'll let you try and figure it out. So I'm going to go to all categories. I'll do .reduce, right? And what I want to do with reduce is I want to include a function as the first argument, comma, the second argument will be an object, and this for us will be the output object, okay? So we don't need to do this step here, okay? We're just going to get just the final object right there, okay? And then we're going to take in the accumulator and a category, so I'll call it cat for short, and then we're going to do something here, okay? So generally what you want to do is, I've kind of pseudo-coded it out for you, right? You want to check and see if that category exists, and if it does, then you want to add 1 to it. And if it doesn't exist, you want to set that category on the object and set the value to 1, okay? Because that item doesn't exist. Okay, so we want to say, yeah, we found one of those things, and there's one of them now, okay? Let me go back to that note there. Oh yeah, here we are, right? Okay, so let's get started here, right? So I'm going to say if, and to see if a category exists, what you'll do is you'll say accumulator, bracket, and then we'll put the category name here, and we'll ask the question, does it equal undefined? I guess actually I'm doing this one actually backwards to what it has here, but I'm going to say if it's undefined, then we should set the value, right? We should create one of these and give it a value of 1, okay? So I'm actually doing the second part first this time, but it's the same thing, right? So we'll say ACC bracket category equals 1, okay? If that's not the case, if this is not undefined, then there is an item that has a category on it, right? Or there is a key with this category name. So in that case, what we'll do is we'll add 1. So we'll say ACC category, and then we'll do plus equals 1, okay? And then again, when you're using reduce, you always need to return the accumulator. So I'm going to say return the accumulator. Okay? And now that we have our categories and counts, we can export them at the bottom. So I'll paste that down here, and let's go to our app.js and test that out. So I'm going to go up to app.js here, and I'm going to import category and count, and maybe I'll console log those and see what it says. I'm going to comment these out for now, and then we'll go to our page here and see what we have, right? So I'm going to refresh this and see what happens, right? Oh, looks like I got some objects here. Automotive, there's 3, baby, there's 4, beauty 3, books 1, clothing 5, computer 6. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let's move on to challenge number 5. So, so this time it's very similar to the last one. But what I want to do is I want to turn the output into an array, right? But I want to have a name and a count, right? So everything in this array here is going to be an object. Each item will be an object with a name and a count, okay? So this is similar to what we had up here, but this one only allows for the name and the value. But maybe in the future, maybe we also want to include some other information like the price or something else. And in that case, we'd have to expand out of this to something where we could hold more information. And we could do that with an object, right? So if every item in the array is an object that has a name and a count, then this would work for us, right? So I'll leave that one as a challenge for you to solve, and then we'll pick it up in the next video, okay? Thanks for watching.